video 2 in my series of how to become a virtual bookkeeper. In video 1, I talked about what kind of skills you need, what types of tasks you would be doing, what type of equipment you would need. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how much money you can expect to make as a virtual bookkeeper. So this is probably what people are the most interested in. So keep in mind that this is not a sponsored video. I'm not selling you a bookkeeping course. I'm just going to give you as honest information as I can as I know it. I don't know what everybody charges, but I have a pretty good general idea just from my interactions with other companies and working in my own company. And I also have worked for another bookkeeping company doing their billing as well. So I have a pretty good idea. So I'm going to try to give you some good information to prepare you for this career. Now keep in mind, I'm only referring to bookkeeping only firms. I'm not familiar enough with companies that are also providing tax services to know what they charge. And I'm only familiar with the United States. I'm not really familiar enough with other countries to speak on what other countries are charging or people in other countries are charging. So just keep that in mind. I do see a lot of videos on this subject. The last video I saw, they were talking about how you could make $500 a month on a client that you only spend 1 to 4 hours a month on. And I want to caution you, when you see those videos, yes, that's entirely possible, but not every client is the same. Don't put every client under one formula that you're going to charge them all $500 a month, because one client might have one bank account and 50 transactions a month. You might have another client that has 7 bank accounts and 10 credit cards and 3,000 transactions a month. Obviously, you're going to want to charge a different price for each of those customers because one is not going to take you nearly as long as the other. So just keep that in mind. So let's talk numbers because that's why you're here. In my experience or in my interactions, bookkeeping companies are charging anywhere from $40 an hour to $90 an hour. Now, your less established firms, maybe with less reviews, might be closer to the $40 an hour range or even under possibly. And then someone that's more established with a bunch of employees and IT department and all of that might be closer to $90 an hour. If it's a CPA, they might even be more than that. So this is the general range that I've seen. And then as far as a monthly rate, I've seen anything from $100 a month to $5,000 a month. So your $100 a month client might be the client that you only spend an hour a month, they don't have that many transactions. And then for $5,000 a month, it might be the type of client that you're working on every day and you're doing a lot more than just entering transactions and reconciling. You might be doing all their client invoices, you might be processing credit card payments, you might be writing all their checks and stuff like that. So it really can depend on what services are being provided and the volume of that. As the client gets closer to the $5,000 a month range, it probably makes more sense for them to hire a full-time accountant at that point, just depending on the situation. So just keep that in mind that at some point, most of the time, for a part-time bookkeeper, it does make sense to hire someone outside the company, but it does get to a point where they have enough of a volume to hire someone full-time. So that's a good range. I'm going to give you some suggestions for if you're just starting out. I would suggest, if you don't have any experience whatsoever, to start at an hourly rate because you don't know how long stuff is going to take you. So start at an hourly rate, get a feel for how long things take you, how fast you work, and then you can move to the monthly rate once you're comfortable. Now, as far as a monthly rate, if you're going to do a monthly rate, I suggest you create some sort of formula based on the volume of transactions and the types of tasks they're asking you to do. If you're doing stuff like creating invoices, writing checks, things like that, obviously you're going to want to add on to your price. But if all you're doing is entering transactions and reconciling, you want to factor that in. So I would definitely come up with some sort of formula, but I really would recommend getting a little experience first just to get your foot in the door and feel out how things go. And another suggestion that I have, well, it's not really a suggestion, I'm going to tell you something that I did that helped me, is when I was first starting out in my own company, I got a job at another bookkeeping company, and this company had really good training. And even though I had experience as an accountant, it is a little different working remotely for multiple companies per time. So I just wasn't used to that. And by working at this other bookkeeping company, I learned a lot about procedures that you would normally follow to have a bookkeeping client, employee management, client management. I also did their billing, so I actually learned a lot about pricing. That was really helpful for me. So that's what I did, and obviously I was working for another company as a W-2 employee, so I was getting paid less than $40 an hour, but it was so valuable to me to get that experience that it was worth it. For those, in the first few years, I didn't have that many of my own clients anyway, and I needed to fill up my time, so it was a good way for me to kind of get experience and, you know, make it my full-time job to do bookkeeping from home right away. So I just wanted to give you a quick example with actual numbers. So let's say you're doing an estimate, you've already looked at a customer's books, and you estimate that it's going to take you about 10 hours a month on average to handle their bookkeeping. And let's just say you've thought about it, you're starting out, you don't have a lot of experience, you don't have a lot of reviews on your website, and you decide that you want to make an average of, we'll just say $50 an hour. So that's going to put your estimate at about $500 a month. Now, do keep in mind that you want to have a little bit of a cushion because there's going to be extra stuff that comes up. There's going to be situations, outliers that are not things that happen on a regular monthly basis. You might have extra communication. This customer might email you a lot, which does take a little extra time. So you just are going to want to have a little bit of a cushion there for those instances. So let's just say you think about it and you decide you want a cushion of 2 hours a month or $100. So that would put your estimate at about $600 a month, which is what you would give the client. Now keep in mind, they might find someone that does it for $400 a month. They might find other companies want to do it for $1,000 a month. So I just want to point that out, that you do have to be competitive. You are competing against other bookkeeping companies. The more established firms with more reviews and they've been in business longer, they're going to have an easier time getting the higher rates. But if you're just starting out, you may struggle a little bit in the beginning, getting people to trust your work and trust you. So I just want to point that out, that this is just kind of how it might look for you when you're trying to decide how much to charge a client. And then another thing I want to suggest is that when you give them this rate, you don't just give them a blank, $600 a month. You actually write out what that would include. You write out what tasks you're going to be handling, and you might even want to put the volume of expected tasks in there. That way, if you're expecting it to be about 500 to 700 transactions a month, you might put that in your estimate, because if all of a sudden they grow or they add a new product or something like that, and all of a sudden they're having 1,200 transactions a month, you're going to want to go back to that and say, hey, this bookkeeping rate includes this, and it looks like you're going to be somewhere higher than that now. Let's talk about this. So it's definitely good to have some data in your estimate for them so that they know what to expect and you know what to expect, or you know what you're basing your estimate on. So I just wanted to give you an example just so you could could kind of see how it works, because me telling you it could be anywhere from $100 to $5,000 a month really doesn't give you solid information, but by giving you some sort of example, hopefully that helps put it together. So I hope that helps give you an idea of what kind of money you could make as a virtual bookkeeper. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below and I'll try to answer them if I can. And my next video is going to be about what type of education or training you need to get to be a bookkeeper. So be sure to watch for that, and thank you for watching.